We are. Let's see. Is that choir for us? Sure we can.
Everybody is wondering what and where they all came from. Everybody is worried about where they're gonna go when the whole thing's done. But no one knows for certain, so it's all the same to me. I think I'll just let the mystery be.
Some say once you're gone forever, and some say you're gonna come back. Some say you rest in the arms of the Savior if in sinful ways you lack. Some say they're coming back in a garden, little bunch of carrots and little sweet peas. I think I'll just let the mystery be. Everybody's wondering what and where they all came from.
Everybody's worried about where they're gonna go when the whole thing's done. But no one knows for certain, so it's all the same to me. I think I'll just let the mystery be. Some say they're going to a place called glory, and I ain't saying it ain't a fact. But I've heard that I'm on the road to purgatory, and I don't like the sound of that. I believe in love, and I live my life accordingly. But I choose to let the mystery be. Everybody's wondering what and where they all came from. Everybody's worried about where they're gonna go when the whole thing's done. But no one knows for certain, so it's all the same to me. I think I'll just let the mystery be. I think I'll just let the mystery be.
Thank you, singers, and especially thanks to Ken for organizing this. Ken Etlinger, yes. So great to be able to sing together. Good morning. As I reflect on my journey to Unitarian Universalism in this congregation, my path has diverged from my family's. As a young Mennonite in my 20s, I was supposed to attend a Mennonite college, marry a Mennonite woman, settle down in a Mennonite community, and make babies. My brother and sisters followed this script, but I didn't. And I look forward to sharing more about my journey later in the service. This morning we'll provide an opportunity for all of us to reflect on our personal pilgrimages. Oh, sorry, Carla. Sorry, folks on Zoom. I hadn't turned the mic on. That always helps. This morning we'll provide an opportunity for all of us to reflect on our personal pilgrimages and perhaps the grace that brought us to the now and the future. As Unitarian Universalists, we come together to worship each week, to honor what is of worth, and to celebrate the grace and abundance that surrounds us. In this hour, we pause the everyday rush and flow of our lives in reverence and thanksgiving to connect with what is sacred, to remember our commitments to each other and the world. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, whatever your name for the sacred, you are very welcome to bring your full self here. For our call to worship, I'm sharing the words of Pat Uribe Lichty. Such an interesting combination, Spanish and German. From my Mennonite background, Lichty is a very common name. We come from many places, along different paths, bringing different truths. We come with different histories and different realities, and yet we come together as one people with faith that we can use our differences to heal ourselves and each other, to bring wholeness to a fractured world. We come seeking to find community, to find acceptance of who we are. In this place, we may find others who are much like us and others who are much different. May our lit chalice, by the way, somebody could light our chalice. Thank you, Mark. By our lit chalice, it reminds us that we are a people taught by different stories, with many voices, but always one people working for a world where love creates justice, and justice gives birth to peace. My name is Kent Martin, and I'm a member of this congregation. As part of our worship committee, I help lead worship from time to time when our pastor, the Reverend Kimberley Quinn Johnson, has a day off. And this is one of those days, but yet she's here with us. What commitment. So Reverend Kimberley is with us today, but not leading the service, and will be contributing later. This service was inspired by Mark Potter, who probably would be up here at the lectern if he just hadn't got back from an amazing adventure in Alaska and wasn't sure how he would be ready to move forward. But Martha, I know, during coffee and fellowship time, we often learn about each other's histories. It's one of my favorite times of the day, just standing around visiting. And this morning, we're going to hear in more detail some personal histories from three fairly different members with different backgrounds. And it's always amazing to consider how those journeys, those personal pilgrimages, brought each of us here together. And I look forward to hearing more detail about those journeys. I'll be sharing mine. So a big thank you to Carl and Monica for handling Zoom and the camera. Monica's not here. I thought she was going to be here this morning. So Carl's handling it all with great aplomb. And good morning to our friends on Zoom. Thank you for joining us there. Please do take a moment right now to silence your phones so that we can enjoy worship without interruption. I'm going to look at mine. And to enhance our worship experience, please hold your applause until the end of the service. Now that the UU choir is done, I think that impulse may be gone. But we do take this time to acknowledge the native people who claimed this land as home before European colonization. We honor generations of their care and stewardship. And we honor our relationship with the Shinnecock neighbors today and their continued struggles for sovereignty and justice. For folks on Zoom, you can find the order of service pasted in your chat. Are there any announcements aside from what's in the order of service that we need to hear from the lectern today? Okay, when you do have announcements, it's great if you can get them into our administrator by Tuesday of the week you would like them announced, just as a reminder. Do we have any visitors who would like to introduce themselves this morning? Sure.
This is our first time here. My name is Matthew, my wife Dolores, and my son Axel.
Welcome, Matthew, Dolores, and Axel. We're glad to have you here. Were you guests of Ken? Okay, I thought you guys had house guests. Oh, yay. All right, you're here without any urging from us, so that's great. So please take a moment now to greet your neighbor at the Meeting House and online. If you haven't had a chance to say good morning yet, it's just a minute to say hi. So, gosh, that call to worship was not truly a chalice lighting. I do have a separate chalice lighting that's already lit. Thank you. We light our chalice today as people dedicated to personal growth. May it burn away the oppressions we have been taught and glow instead with the humility of learning. May it reignite our dreams for a better world and kindle our joy for simple living. May its warmth extend out into the forgotten alleyways of exclusion and bring us home to love, to welcoming, and to all the challenges, the questions, and the blessings of this beautiful path to becoming a beloved community. So our first hymn is Dona Nobis Pacem, and today is a bit unique in that we don't have one of our regular musicians here. Stephen is off on an adventure, so we don't get to have his piano and guitar, and our other musicians are elsewhere. So we're doing a cappella, which personally I love. And our UUCSF singers are going to lead us in Dona Nobis Pacem. That's number 388 in your hymnal. Please feel free to turn to page 388 and sing with us. So this, of course, is around. I think you've all sung it before, most of us. And join in where you feel so moved. We're going to sing it through all together once, and then move into the rounds. And we'll sing it through during the round twice. So there's the F.
Dona nobis pacem, pacem. Dona nobis 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 pacem, pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Dona nobis pacem, pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Dona nobis pacem.
Mark Potter will give us our first message with the title of The Past is Never the Past.
Some of you may recognize that title. It's a variation of a quote by William Faulkner, "The past is never past." It reminds us we carry our past with us wherever we go. Our memories, our decisions we make, the stories we use to explain them. So today, when we think about our spiritual past, a reminder of our Unitarian Universalist past seemed appropriate. Although the Unitarian Association was not founded until 1825, we need to start 100 years earlier. In 1700, the descendants of the Puritan colonists lived off the land as farmers, typically providing food for 7 to 10 children. This is a much higher birth rate and survival rate than was back in England. As adults, each of these children had to clear land for their own farms. And it's a sad story, but King Philip's War and the tragic epidemics which devastated the Native American population made space for the New Englanders. Which means that 100 years after the first colonists arrived in New England, their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren had spread across Massachusetts and Connecticut to Long Island, southern Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Their home parents' church had a difficult time keeping up with them. And then there were the witch trials. In the 1690s, the church-led government tormented and executed hundreds of innocent people. And the whole population, the whole community was involved in this. Over the next few decades, this nightmare haunted them all and weakened the moral authority of the Puritan Church. By 1730, the stage was set for the first Great Awakening. Revivalist preachers brought emotion, singing, yelling to the congregations, and what had been a staid and formal church experience became an emotional experience. They emphasized the individual's personal responsibility in their own salvation and challenged traditional church hierarchy. It also encouraged the growth of new denominations, Baptist, Methodist, Unitarian, and splitting many congregational and Presbyterian churches into New Lights and Old Lights. I was part of an Old Light congregation. In 1825, 150 Unitarian congregations formed the American Unitarian Associations. That was 1825, rejecting the concept of the Trinity and emphasizing reason, morality, and personal responsibility. The Congregational Church, where I was raised, chose another direction. We ended up each service with a pledge of allegiance to the Trinity. I believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. This peculiar practice puzzled me from about 10 years old until I just forgot about it. Of course, details of theology were critically important in the 1700s. After all, we're talking about our salvation, life ever after. And for some, they're still important now. But for me, the way we value each other, our family, our friends, our neighbors, tells more about us than the hymns we sing, or the way we take communion, or when we get baptized, or whether we eat pork or not. Back in the 1700s, and even today, 300 years later, our understanding of salvation offers clues to the value we give to our fellow human beings. Today, you may not believe in a heaven or hell. You may question the existence of God itself. But you know good luck and a good life when you see it. And it looks awfully like salvation. In the Roman Catholic faith, the priests and clergy are there to help you follow the steps that will lead you to salvation, to life ever after. The Protestant sects had a different notion. They were largely Calvinists. For a Calvinist, only God decides whether or not you will be saved. You won't truly know until you reach the pearly gates yourself. But if you are wealthy, warm, and safe, you can and do assume that you are one of the chosen. And so there we have a little twist on that. Is it God that's choosing, or we're choosing by just working hard and being good citizens and rich citizens? But what of those who are destitute, who are born to poor families, perhaps turned to crime, or have had nothing but bad luck all their lives? Are they doomed to misery now and eternal damnation at death? For many, back in the 1700s, this did not seem in keeping with the loving God that Jesus described in the New Testament. A few ministers began to preach the concept of universal salvation in the mid-1700s. And in 1770, John Murray arrived in New Jersey and began preaching a message that all of us will be saved. He founded a new Protestant sect, American Universalism. The Unitarian Association merged with the Universalists 65 years ago. From each of them, we inherited an appreciation of simple worship and with little, if any, rituals, and an unadorned building in which to worship. From our Unitarian ancestors, we inherited an intellectual bent, maybe, leaning on evidence and reason to understand our world. From our Universalists, we learned to value everyone, no matter high or low, and to reach out our hands to lift up those in need. Let it be so.
Thank you, Mark. I love that meta overview of the journey of the Unitarian Universalist faith, juxtaposed today with our personal journeys. So thank you for that. At this time, we can sing our children out to their religious education program, but today we have kind of one child, and the kids are welcome to go in the back or hang out with the grown-ups. So we do have some kind of toys and stuff here, but maybe not age appropriate. So, okay, so let's sing the kind of the Unitarian Universalist anthem, Spirit of Life, which is number 1, 2, 3 in the hymnal. We're going to do it a cappella today, of course. And I'd love to hear some harmony for those of you who can join in on tenor or bass. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, give life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Please be seated. For a meditation this morning, I've chosen the words of Lisa Garcia Sampson, and it's entitled Spirit of Life and Love. Spirit that lives within us and between us and among us right now, within this beloved community and in our work for collective liberation, may we continue to weave the web of trust and care to keep our bodies safe. But more than that, may our bodies be the site of healing, joy, and freedom. May we refuse to let our spirits be depleted and hardened by the forces of hate. Instead, may open ourselves to be nourished and transformed by the movement for justice, knowing that our collective story is not what we are fighting against, but what we are fighting for. For ours is the work of creation. Ours is the work of inviting people into an irresistible movement rooted in our belief that a new world is possible. And the center of our work is love and joy and the spirit of abundance. These are the things we are fighting for, and these are the things we are fighting with. may we know deep in our bones that this is the call of our faith. Amen and blessed be. Please hold a moment of silence with us, and I'll ring the chime at the end of that. Because the Zendo practice is here, I always wonder if there's a special zeitgeist in this room that allows us to move into a deep meditation quickly. I sometimes feel that way. Who knows? This is the time in our service where we have the opportunity to share a joy, a sorrow, or a milestone with this community. When you come to the mic to share your moment, please state your name and be brief so all have time to share. And of course, in the meeting house, you have to come up here to the mic. Do we have candles? Yes, I'll light a candle for you. And the folks on Zoom can raise your hand for Carl to see, and he'll make sure that we can hear you in the sanctuary. So feel free to come. I lit one last candle for all our unspoken joys and concerns. We know that not all of our joys or concerns are shared here on Sunday mornings, so our Care and Connection team works to stay in touch with those in our community who are in need of a little extra care. If you need that extra care, please feel free to reach out to Reverend Kimberley or Pam, and they will help arrange maybe a phone call, a meal, a ride, whatever you need to help you get through your situation. So it's time for our offering, and we received 2 collections here. The basket that is passed will hold your gifts for the work of the congregation within this wall, within these walls, and the basket in the back of the room is for the Helping Hand Fund, which supports the work of the congregation beyond these walls. And sometimes that's a car repair, a month's rent for somebody in need, or maybe a King calling card. But we're happy to help both inside and outside of our congregation. I believe Carl's going to play some offering music for us as well.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know we will get there. We are going, heaven knows
there. Boom, boom, ti-boom, ti-boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, ti-boom, ti-boom, boom, boom. We will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will get there. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going. But we know we will get there. Boom, boom, ti-boom, ti-boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, ti-boom, ti-boom, boom, boom. It will be hard, we know, that the road will be muddy and rough, but we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will get there. Boom, boom, ti-boom, ti-boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, ti-boom, ti-boom, boom, boom. It will be hard, we know, that the road will be muddy and rough, but we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know, we know we will.
The song about the journey that Wo Ya Ya is a wonderful setup for this part of our service, which is the second message. And we'll look forward to hearing from three speakers today. I'd like to have Reverend Kimberley go first, sharing her personal UU journey, and then Celia Josephson, and I'll finish up.
So I grew up what I like to describe as a Southern Baptist in New Jersey. We went to a church with people who had come up from Georgia, and it felt very much like family. Everybody knew each other. My grandfather was a leader in the church. He was a deacon. And so my grandmother was a deaconess. And what I learned and what I appreciated from being a Baptist was this idea of community care, that we cared for each other. And if somebody needed something, we could figure out within the community how to get it. I remember the warmth of sort of church revivals where there'd be fish fries in the kitchen and music all day in the sanctuary. And I might have stayed a Baptist my entire life, except I started to grow up. While my mother's family was Baptist, my father was what I would call intellectually curious. He was not in favor of organized religion, but he was really not in favor of organized anything. He would read sort of the books that he read. He did read the Bible. He also read the Quran. But he also read Mao's Little Red Book of communist quotations and sayings and teachings. And he also read these two slim volumes by an author called J.A. Rogers, World's Great Men of Color. and it talked about achievements by Black men throughout history around the world. And so he inspired this curiosity for asking questions, for learning new things, for scratching beneath the surface. And so I have the comfort of my Baptist upbringing and this intellectual curiosity from my father, and that meets my adolescence. And so as an adolescent, in retrospect, I recognize this as developmentally appropriate. But I developed a real skepticism for what I understood as hypocrisy in the church, how the teaching from the pulpit didn't match the actions, some of the actions that I saw, especially from leaders, that there would be scandals, that there would be gossip. And so adolescent Kimberley really started to question the institution of church. At the same time, I think I was a Universalist before I had the language of Universalism. I didn't understand how someone in a different part of the world who had not been introduced to Jesus Christ could be damned to hell for not accepting Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. And no one could give me an answer that felt right or fair. As I became more intellectually curious, my skepticism took a different bent. I became what I would describe as anti-religious and what I would describe as a full-on adult, my young adult self, obnoxiously anti-religious. I would tell anyone who asked, and frankly, anyone who did not ask, that religion was the opiate of the masses, that religion and Christianity especially was used as a tool around, I was very obnoxious, used as a tool around the world to pacify Black people, that it was used as a tool to subordinate women. Some of this is found in practice, and also there is plenty of Christianity that is not that. But it did, though, create for me a different kind of path, so that by the time I'm in my 20s and obnoxiously anti-religious and out in the world as an organizer, when I started to struggle and to really need something more in my life, what came back to me was the feeling that I got from going to church and being a Baptist. And so I decided that what I needed to do, I think I could hear my grandmother's voice in my head, what you need to do is go to church. And so I found for myself where I was living a list of all the Black churches. I don't know how I decided that they were the Black churches, maybe because they were Baptist. And while the community aspect was amazing, theologically it didn't fit for who I was or where I was. And I happened upon an article in Essence magazine. Essence magazine is a kind of fashion and culture magazine for Black women. Not where you would expect, not where I would expect to find my deep theological calling. But I read this article in Essence magazine, and it was written by this woman who was, at that time I just understood her to be a minister at this church in Montclair, New Jersey. I happened to be living in Montclair, New Jersey. Everything about this was a revelation, that there was a church where people could ask questions and engage on theological issues, that they were committed to justice in the world, that this Black woman was a minister. I don't think at that point I had ever known a woman minister, let alone a Black woman minister. It was just like mind-blowing. And I happened to live in this town. It was meant to be. By the time I made it to the church, it takes a long time between when an article is written and when an article is published. She wasn't there anymore. She had moved on to a different congregation, but the die was cast. I loved it. I loved the community. I loved the questions that we asked each other. I loved being able to engage theologically and intellectually. I loved the faith that told me that my faith belonged out in the world and not only in the church building. I became a Unitarian and then a Unitarian Universalist. And I will close by saying the two of the songs that we heard today, I think beautifully encapsulate for me my understanding and my living of Unitarian Universalism. The first UU song that I learned was Spirit of Life. And I copied it onto an index card and I put it above my desk, my cubicle at work. And this idea, this like gentle invitation to a spirit of life to come in, and roots that would hold me close, but wings that would spread me far into the world. Just as a 20-something in the world, that was exactly what I needed. And now, as a more than 20-something in the world, when I sing, well, yeah, this idea that we don't know where we're going. We know it will be hard, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we will get there. Heaven knows where we are going, but we will get there. We know we will. That, Kent, is Unitarian Universalism to me in its most pure. Thank you.
Well, I'm Celia, and very interestingly, I realized that in some sense I came to Unitarianism as sort of as a response to my upbringing in terms of just being so affected by certain political events as opposed to religious events. My mother was born in Germany in 1927, and her mother was Jewish, her father was not. My father was an American and who was also Jewish, but every time we got together for dinner, the discussion was always how Jews were persecuted, et cetera, et cetera. And the lesson that I was taught there was, well, therefore you should hate everyone who doesn't happen to be Jewish, and you should live in a kind of paranoid state permanently. And I felt that that was irrational from the word go, and I always felt that I wanted to find a way to go through life that focused on social justice and focused on understanding the human drives that led to such a catastrophe. And interestingly, through my life, Unitarianism has sort of been there in the background because now I can sort of recognize it. Because when I was in college, the Unitarian Service Committee was very active against the war in Vietnam. And when I moved to Cambridge, Mass., there was a big Unitarian church right in Harvard Square, and the Service Committee again was very active in efforts against what was happening in Central America, the Central American liberation movements, and I happened to have been in Guatemala when these things were going on. And so later, interestingly, when I developed a strong interest also in literature, a lot of my were Unitarians from the middle of the 19th century from New England, people like Nathaniel Hawthorne, Herman Melville, and Emerson. And so this sense, sort of belief in the world as a divine place and human beings as incorporating a kind of divine spirit themselves really appealed to me, because the one lesson I learned from all of the paranoia that was foisted on me was, well, you do have to retain your independence and your own perspective no matter what your society is telling you to think at any moment, and you have to hold on to your rationality. And so I felt that this was in harmony with my outlook.
Thank you, Celia and Reverend Kimberly. I love how you both speak extemporaneously so beautifully, and I scripted my remarks, so I apologize in advance. As I noted in my opening remarks earlier, I was raised in the Mennonite faith, and the word Mennonite conjures up images of conservative dress like men with beards and women with long dresses and head coverings with horses and buggies. But the small town in southeastern Colorado, where I was raised, had a very small but vibrant community of Mennonites who were drawn there to staff and run the local hospital, which originally had been a tuberculosis sanitarium, of which many were set up through the West just because of the dry air. My dad had relocated to La Junta, Colorado, where I was raised, because he had severe respiratory problems in Pennsylvania, where he was raised on a family farm. And he worked his way up to being the maintenance engineer of the hospital. My mother came from a large farming family in Iowa, where there was a big cluster of Mennonite folks as well. And she moved to La Junta to become an RN, a registered nurse at the hospital. And I give you this background because it kind of paints a bigger picture of my journey, so bear with me. So of course, in that small town in southeastern Colorado, the Mennonite community was a small group within a larger secular community. Unlike my cousins back in Pennsylvania or Iowa, who were raised in large Mennonite ghettos that had schools and a much more dominant presence for the faith there. And as a result of being a small fish in a larger pond, I believe acculturation happened more quickly than it did back east. My mom and dad both spoke Pennsylvania Dutch, and they just used it to talk behind our backs. And I didn't get to learn any, which would have been wonderful. My mom did wear a head covering, and you may, from time to time, you may see Mennonites outbursts that will have head coverings with strings. My grandmother and some of my aunts in Pennsylvania wore those. They do not to this day. There are more conservative sects of Mennonites that still wear the head coverings, and they called it a cape dress that had a piece of cloth that just kind of covered the torso and was longer, so a very modest dress for the women. But it didn't seem fair to me that the men could dress like any other man, and they just blended in with the regular population, but the women had to stand out. It's an interesting thing to consider. So, the key event in my family's life that really sucked us into American culture was getting a TV in our house. And of course, it was for education. and there was certainly some education there, but Lord knows we were soon watching Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin sing on the shows, and the lovely women with them. And so we were kind of sucked into kind of mainstream culture. And then, of course, our friends at school and just school in general brought I and my sister and brothers, or my brother and sisters, kind of into the cultural mainstream. So much so that when one of my sisters was in high school, she actually had a little party in our basement with rock and roll and low lights. And I thought, my goodness, where have we ended up here? But in spite of that acculturation, we were very active in our Mennonite church, and my brother and sisters and I were in the youth program there, did a lot of things together as a group. So much of our social life still was within the church, and we went to a Mennonite church camp, which I remember fondly to this day, on the Pikes Peak Massif. Had many wonderful times in the Rockies there. And we ended up going to a Mennonite college that kind of drew kids from our area that was located in Heston, Kansas. Heston Mennonite College was the name of it. And I spent 2 years there, did fall in love with a Mennonite woman, did not end up marrying her, but I started asking questions actually in high school that were kind of difficult to deal with. I should add, too, that the peace movement and the hippies of the late 60s and 70s were somewhat in sync with the pacifism of Mennonites and our biblical call to feed the hungry and help the poor. The soundtrack of Jesus Christ Superstar was cool and was welcomed in my Mennonite church. So I was able to play my drum set at the time in church, something my cousins in Pennsylvania would never imagine. And along with the hippie subculture came some Eastern thought with writers like Alan Watts and the Bhagavad Gita. When my mother heard that I was reading Carl Jung, she warned me that his writings were evil, which made no sense to me, but apparently that was gospel in the Mennonite community. And about that time, I started asking questions of our pastor, like, if God is love, why do all non-Christians get condemned to hell? Which is Reverend Kimberley was pondering. And can't there be different paths to salvation? And why do women play such a minor role in the New Testament? I thought this was supposed to be the new Christianity, the new belief in God that was more enlightened than what we saw in the Old Testament. So the answers I received to these questions were less than enlightened, but not harshly dogmatic. I was fortunate in that I wasn't excommunicated for asking them, and certainly in some more rigid Mennonite traditions I would have been. But so when I was at Heston College, I had a typical liberal arts education and also learned about the Anabaptists in Europe, predecessors to the Mennonites. And I was inspired by their fierce commitment to adult baptism and the embrace of the Beatitudes in the New Testament, in spite of the persecution that came with these divergent beliefs in Europe. And when my Martin ancestors came to Penn's Woods from Switzerland in the late 1600s, they were looking for freedom to practice their religion and the chance to carve farmland out of the forests. The teachings of the former Catholic priest Menno Simons spawned a new expression of Anabaptism in the 1600s, and his followers were called Mennonites. And they were to the left of Martin Luther in the Reformation. There were some aspects of Lutheranism that they were just not happy with. But when they came to Pennsylvania, they helped push out the Native Americans and feed our growing colonies with their excellent farming skills. So we were part of that push that Mark spoke about earlier, although this was in Pennsylvania. So back to Mennonite colleges. The unspoken role of Mennonite colleges and universities is to see that Mennonite young people marry Mennonites and settle in Mennonite communities. My brother and sisters found this to be a great path, but I was being pulled in other directions. When I married my first wife, a Filipino nurse, we moved down to the Santa Fe Trail. My hometown was on the Santa Fe Trail. We moved down to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I loved Santa Fe, which was awash at that time, probably still to this day, in New Age practitioners and fans. That line of thought embraced the experience of transcendence, the centrality of love, spiritual practices, and mysterious forces that impact our lives outside of science. The religious practices of the Pueblo Indians in the area were also fascinating. From time to time, I'd go to Pueblo ceremonials, and you'd see young people and families dancing, chanting, practicing their religion, which was mostly focused inside the kivas, or the heart of it was. So we couldn't see kind of what they were doing, but they had vibrant cultural traditions and religious practices and language that seemed to be very meaningful to them. And of course, they were tied in with nature, the cycle of the seasons and crops and so forth. So that was interesting to consider. Hiking, camping, skiing, and mountain biking in the mountains and plateaus of northern New Mexico also drew a deep spiritual connection for me. La Tierra Encantada, indeed. I loved New Mexico, I still do. I met my wife, Amy, a New Yorker, in Albuquerque at a soda fountain, and we enjoyed exploring New Mexico's ghost towns and cultural life. But illness in her family pulled me back to the East Coast, and we lived in Connecticut for a couple of years, and then found our way to Long Island to be close to her family. And when we had kids, her mom lived with us, which was a wonderful blessing and helped us raise our kids. But when we had kids, we were looking around, Amy and I were, for a congregation. We wanted to find a place where we could bring a family and the kids could have a religious education. And we went to a few Protestant churches, and they were just too dogmatic, and one was just anti-LGBTQ. Well, there were probably a lot of anti-gay things going on, and I just did not feel comfortable. And then a friend of mine who I sang with in the choral society, I don't know if some of you guys would know him, Charles. He was a pastor and a boat captain. I can't remember his full name. Anyhow, he sang with me, and he said, "You got to try the UUs. They're a wonderful congregation." And so I did. And at that time, we were meeting in Watermill. It was a larger group. There were a lot of kids, and I said, "Gosh, my son would have a great time here." And so we started attending. And I remember protesting the Iraq War on Montauk Highway in front of the meeting house, having people yell at us, with my son clinging to my leg and my sign, and I thought, this is the place to be. So I just felt very comfortable. Coming out of the Mennonite tradition, there is a lot of social action in their practice. Maybe that takes more the form of, there was certainly some demonstration, but going in and helping people clean up after disasters is a big Mennonite thing, and Amish too. So it just felt like a comfortable place to be, and I loved the intellectual freedom that we have here to pursue our own journeys and believe what we want to believe to a point within our principles. So I just feel like it was such a blessing to find this place and you people. And my kids, I think, had a good foundation out there in their 20s. My daughter still identifies as a UU. My son, I don't know. But I just think this congregation has made a wonderful contribution to our lives and my life, and I am so lucky to have found you all. So. Please stand for our final hymn, number 1003 in the Teal Hymnal, and the UUCSF singers will lead us again in Where Do We Come From? So again, pondering our journey. That's number 1003 in the Teal Hymnal. We're going to sing through the whole thing to start with. Each of the 4 sections gets repeated once as we sing through it. Then we're going to start layering on the different voices the second time through. Let's see, I'll give you a half here. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where do we come from?
mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery.
Thank you guys for helping lead music this morning. So please join us after the postlude for fellowship and light refreshments in our fellowship room back there. And as a benediction, I am reading the words of Mary Edis. I love the energy of this reading. Like the cosmic dust following after a great Perseid meteor, we are the living remnants of time and all that has come to pass in its wake, briefly shining lights on the way to eternity. We are only visible to the naked eye for an instant. Take this moment to shine like the stardust you are. May the light of our time on earth shine to bless the world and each other. Shine, shine, shine. Yeah. Amen. Please join me in reading the words to extinguish the chalice, which are in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of wisdom, nor of community, nor fire of commitment. These carry in our hearts until we are together again. So for our postlude, since we don't have live music, I've asked Carl to play a spiritual, which I hope you'll enjoy. So please remain seated, and then we can move to the refreshments. Okay. Okay, Carl, if it's not cooperating. Okay.